turn 1, I'm using the 100 board as my reference for braking. I start lifting and braking right as the car passes it. And I'm shifting down to third gear. I'm really delaying that second downshift to third just to help carry a bit more speed into here. You want to hug this white line as you apex. Avoid going onto the curb because it's quite elevated and can push the car wide. It's also pretty easy to understeer wide into the exit here, so it's super important to get your rotation done before the apex here and not run wide onto the gravel, as it can be tricky. You can just about dip your tires into the gravel. Any more than that, you can get an off track. I found that usually if the car, like the middle of the car, kind of passes this green surface here, that's where you can get the off track. And for the hairpin, I'm using the 50 board as my reference for braking. I'm turning in quite early into this hairpin because it doesn't really lead into a long straight, so I found taking the more V-shaped line is a bit faster. You can gain more time on the entry and you won't really lose too much on the exit. Really long trail braking phase here, and wrapping the white line once again for a bit of extra grip. You can use this little green AstroTurf on the left. You won't get the off track. Just make sure you're back on the racing track or the surface before the end of it. Bringing the car back to the right side, using the 50 board as a reference point for braking. There's a bit of that same AstroTurf on the right hand side. You can use that on the entry. You can gain a bit of time doing so. Keeping the car in third gear. I'm not braking super hard. Cutting all this curb here, even a bit of the grass if you can. On the exit, utilizing all of this AstroTurf. You won't get the off track, even if your tires are off the curb. You just want to make sure you're back on the track before it ends. Using the 50 board for braking once again, shifting down to third gear. Really want to set up a late apex here because this leads to the longest straight on the track. Bit of a camber on the inside. On this lap I kind of missed it a little bit, but you really want to get on this white line so you can get on the power a bit earlier. I lost probably about a tenth here by not doing so. This corner, using the 50 board once again. Not braking super hard, kind of trailing off nice and smoothly. Shifting down to fourth. It's kind of hard to gauge when to get back on power here. There really isn't any key references. So you just kind of have to get a feeling for when you can. Because the exit does come pretty quick after this corner. Super important that you don't cook your entry here, because you can run wide and it can be very hard to bring the car back on the track. But anyways, I'm using the 50 board once again. It's my reference for braking. Going down to third gear. You want to cut all of this curb all the way to the AstroTurf once again. Using all the runoff available to making sure you're back on the track before it ends. Similar approach to the last corner, except it's blind, so you gotta be just make sure you're getting your turning point right here. I'm shifting down to third gear again, and I'm cutting all of this curb once again. You can actually cut more than I did, and you can get on the power a bit earlier than me, and you can gain a bit more time. 50 board for braking. Going down to third gear. A bit of a camber on the inside again, so you really want to get your left side tires on the curb as you apex. For the final corner, and pretty much every corner on this track it seems, using the 50 board for a braking reference once again. Rear end likes to get loose here, so watch out for that. I'm going down to third gear, and on the exit, you can kind of bring the car back to the right in qualifying, and you can shorten the distance to the finish line. You can gain a little bit of time. And that's a guide for Brands Hatch. I hope you guys found this helpful. Like always, I'll leave you with the chase cam view of the lap. And good luck in your racing, and I'll see you next week.